Toronto is living through that tense calm before the storm, that feeling that something massive is about to happen, and that every move from here on out could define not just the next season, but the emotional direction of the entire Jays nation. Because while Boston flirts with big names, while the whole league shifts around, what truly shakes a fan's heart is knowing that Toronto is about to make decisions that could rewrite the franchise's destiny. But real quick, Jays Nation, hit like and subscribe, because here you live every chapter of this blue drama as part of our family. And it all begins with a surreal narrative coming out of Boston, because nothing rattles a fan base more than seeing another league giant moving pieces, as if preparing to rip away a piece of your identity. The Red Sox, desperate for power in the middle of their order, had already been linked to practically every major name on the market: Alonso, Bregman, anyone who could send the ball over the fence. But then, in the middle of that whirlwind, one name drops that makes the air feel heavier: Bo Bichette. Yes, him, the face of the rebuild, the aesthetic of the future, the shortstop Toronto molded, polished, and turned into a symbol. Suddenly, reports leaked saying Bo had a Zoom meeting with Boston. A Zoom! And it wasn't just any conversation. Sources said it went well. The sentence nobody wanted to read. And how could it not sting a little? Jays Nation, imagining Bo, our Bo, impressed by another jersey, another culture, another pitch. News like that hits like thunder because it's not just about negotiations. It's about belonging, identity, the fear of losing someone who feels like part of the franchise's DNA. You felt that cold stab in your chest too, didn't you? But the next day, everything shifts, as if someone slammed the brakes on the storyline. From went well, the update becomes a cold shower for Boston. They are not expected to pursue him unless the market changes. And this is where the psychological layer appears. Because deep down, this refusal doesn't feel like it's about Bichette. It feels like it's about cost, about the weight of a contract that, at 27, will almost certainly be longer and more expensive than those of Bregman or Alonso, older players with more predictable markets. Boston is doing the math, and the numbers say Bichette may be too much, not in talent, but in price. And suddenly, that initial threat twists into something subtler, almost cynical. No one wants to open a wallet for Bo, but everyone knows exactly how dangerous it would be to let him slip somewhere else. It's as if the whole league respects the talent, but fears the bill. Jays Nation, does this change how you see his future in Toronto? Or just make it clearer that this dilemma was never simple? And while Boston peers into our backyard, Toronto looks inward. And honestly, the internal scene is heavier, more uncomfortable, more real. Because the Santander situation became that wound you try to ignore until you can't. He arrived with fanfare, treated as a major offensive signing, the impact bat, the symbol of ambition. But the season was cruel. A damaged shoulder, a long absence, numbers that collapsed before our eyes. A .565 OPS, a .175 average, just 6 home runs and nearly 200 at-bats. And when he finally returned, when hope seemed ready to spark again, the postseason sent him right back to the sidelines. First due to timid performance, then because the shoulder tightened again in the ALCS. Seeing Santander out of the World Series felt symbolic. A major investment disappearing at the moment of greatest need. It hurts to remember, doesn't it, Jays Nation? And now comes the cold, mathematical, brutal part. The contract is underwater. A term that sounds almost like a verdict. For years remaining, over $80 million committed, negative value. If Toronto wants to move him, they'll have to eat money, real money, or take on another heavy contract. And still, the front office isn't shutting the door. They're talking, listening, staying open. And that reveals something deep, something that changes the emotional mood of this entire offseason. Toronto is no longer living based on what it spent. It's living based on what it needs to win. The franchise is targeting 2026 with absolute priority, unafraid of taking financial losses. And the end result means immediate competitiveness. And you, Jays Nation, would you trade Santander even at a loss? But in the middle of all this turbulence, there's a gravitational force pulling the entire narrative toward itself, a presence that could become the definitive plot twist. Kyle Tucker, the most coveted free agent, the most complete hitter available, the type of player who changes the emotional weight of an entire lineup. And insiders say, clearly, that the Blue Jays are the favorites. If Tucker really comes north, the offensive order gains a new soul, and inevitably, Santander's fate becomes nearly sealed. Newsweek doesn't hesitate. If Tucker signs, there is no reason to keep Santander. But Sportsnet, more analytical, reminds us that Toronto isn't letting past mistakes become an anchor. The focus is singular. Wins in 2026. Jays Nation, would you give up money, pride, and old narratives if that meant placing Tucker in the outfield? And as all this unfolds, something bigger begins forming on the horizon. Like a storm everyone senses but no one can pinpoint. The potential departure of Bichette, the need to reconfigure the order, the possibility of Tucker, the uncertainty surrounding Santander, the urgency carried only by those who came 2 out away from a championship. Toronto knows exactly where it stands, right at the edge between turning pain into greatness or watching another window slip away. And now I want to hear from you, Jays Nation. What is the move that changes everything? Letting Bichette go? Going all in on Tucker? Trading Santander, no matter the cost? Hit like, subscribe, and stay with us, because this offseason promises to be the most decisive of the modern Blue Jays era, and every decision could be the chapter that finally leads the city to the title it deserves. Take a deep breath, because the next announcement might become destiny.